Welcome to the January 16th, 2019 edition of This Week in Black Media. This week's review is going to be truncated because there's some residential construction taking place, and with the intermittent noise, we don't want the transmission to get interrupted. What will take place is we will do a quick review of two of the key topics that took place in last week's Black Media, and then we'll preview that for a longer makeup video that we'll do on Sunday, along with Ancestral Production's normal Sunday video, and then we should be back in schedule starting next week on Wednesdays again. So what we're looking at here, just briefly, is Representative Steve King, Republican Representative Steve King, and who has been sanctioned by his own Republican Party for his racist rhetoric. And we're going to go into some observations made by the Roland Martin show and others, showing what we're going to draw attention to is the fact that the myth of white supremacy is compromised. It's in quicksand, and the entire Western dominant social narrative is not the future of America with the incoming diversity, etc. So we're going to go into that. We're going to go into Steve King. We're going to go into some of the legislation that he sought in the public school system to try to continue the Eurocentric social narrative with school children. And we're going to see how that's been pervasive throughout our society, and how him being rebuked by his entire party and punished in public like that. He had to renounce beliefs that we can suspect that he embraced, and he was cowardly. He was cowardly, and he didn't stand by those views, apologized and compromised everything that he said that he stood for. So his reputation is, he's being asked to stand down, to sit out. The Republican Party doesn't want to be associated with him because they know there's no future in their party with that kind of rhetoric, however racist they might be undercover. So we're going to go in there, we're going to take a look at the fall of Steve King, well-deserved. And then another hot topic we'll go into is who I've nominated for the 2018 Cody Award, and that is the Coon of the Year Award, or that's the 2018 Cody Award for all last year. And I nominate Senator Cory Booker as a traitor, as a supporter of the S-720 Israel Anti-Boycott Act against the Palestinian people, which we find it's not only against the Palestinian peoples, our brothers and sisters in Palestine, but it's also a attack on the freedom of speech of every American in this country, be they European, African, Asian, anybody in the society can fall victim to this legislation. And we've seen one Palestinian woman who lost her job because of the legislation, and we're going to go into the nitty-gritty details on it and do inside look at what Mr. Booker has said about that law. And we're going to look at every senator that has co-signed it and compromised the integrity of our right to protest. We should be disturbed by this, and many are. So we're going to go into that, and we're going to show how to research who's voted on it and where to look. You're looking at it right there. And how we can start to observe our legislatures, how they move, what they do. Nothing's in secret anymore. It's all open to be observed. And this act on his part, I suggest, absolves him from being any kind of credible presidential candidate. And keep in mind also the Congressional Black Caucus. I didn't name it that. Others have named it that because they haven't done much for Black Americans. They've been co-signers for anything that the Europeans wanted to do in the Democratic Party. That's a whole other tangent. But he's the only one of that caucus that supported the act. And we're going to look at it in his words, how he rationalized it. And I'm going to draw attention to the hypocrite that he is. Kristen Gillibrand was another one that signed it from the Democratic Party, but she was smart. She recanted. She walked away from it. So not just Mr. Booker, but every senator that supports this legislation has stabbed the American public in the back and we'll show how that is, and we will show why I make that argument. This also shows the importance of social media and having our own independent news channels, our own independent black media that can report on things like this, because we saw this week with NBC, where we saw that they tried to manipulate the language used to describe Steve King's behavior, and where the reporters were explicitly told not to say that what he said was racist, but to say that it could be observed as racist. We see this is how the media has manipulated our perception of social reality from the time it was implemented, which it was always supposed to be a conditioning tool. I'll go into the history on that at some point too. So in any order, what he's done, I consider it traitorous, and not just Mr. Booker. Any one of our government's legislatures that has supported that anti-Israel, the Anti-Boycott Act, S720, has they're traitors to the citizens of the United States of America. That's how I see it. And even for supposedly progressive media channels like the Young Turks, we won't see them talk about this legislation. We won't see them criticize the Jewish power politics. That's because they're beholden to them. As I've mentioned before, that is the litmus test to find the legitimacy in the media you're receiving from black media. Are they willing to address the crimes of Israel? Are they willing to address the Jewish involvement in the slave trade? Are they willing to confront the Zionist Jews with their own history, with the documents of history? Those that are not are beholden to them, and they cannot be trusted. That's what my argument is. So, as we can see, some noise is welling up in the background again, but rest assured, on Sunday we will go into all of that. So we could just consider it a double post this Sunday. So until then, keep these things in mind, and we'll go into it more Sunday.